Once upon a time, in a quiet little village nestled between hills and rivers, there lived a wise old monk named Master Sattu. He was admired far and wide, not just for his deep wisdom, but also for his sharp wit and warm laughter. People from all walks of life would visit him, hoping to find answers to life's biggest questions. One sunny morning, a curious young man named Sam made his way to the monk's hut. With a heart full of ambition and eyes sparkling with curiosity, he said, "Master, I want to learn the secret to happiness and success. Please, will you teach me?" The old monk looked at Sam with a knowing smile and a playful twinkle in his eye. "Of course," he replied, "but first, I have a small task for you." Sam leaned in eagerly. "Go to the market," Master Sattu continued, "and find the biggest, juiciest watermelon you can. Then, carry it on your head and walk through the entire village, without dropping it." Sam blinked, confused but undeterred. Though the task seemed odd, he trusted the monk's wisdom. With a respectful bow, he set off toward the marketplace. At the market, Sam carefully picked out the largest, ripest watermelon he could find. With a deep breath, he placed it on his head and began the slow, cautious journey back through the village. Every step required intense focus. Villagers turned to watch the curious sight. Some laughed, others clapped, and children followed, mimicking his every wobble. Despite the noise and distraction, Sam kept his balance. With a mix of pride and exhaustion, he finally arrived at the monk's doorstep, sweaty, wobbly, but victorious. The watermelon was perfectly intact. Expecting praise or perhaps a deep philosophical lesson, Sam stood tall and looked at Master Sattu. But instead of applause, the old monk burst into hearty laughter, his whole body shaking with joy. After wiping away tears of amusement, he finally spoke. "Well done, young one," he chuckled. "But more importantly, I hope you learned something along the way." Sam raised an eyebrow, still a bit confused. The monk continued, "Life, my dear boy, is just like carrying that watermelon. It's awkward, full of unexpected bumps, and people will always have something to say." He leaned closer and smiled kindly, "But if you approach it with a light heart and a sense of humor, you'll discover joy even in the strangest of situations. That's the secret to happiness and success. Laugh when life gets heavy. Smile through the challenges. Don't take yourself too seriously." At that moment, something clicked for Sam. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. And in that laughter, he found a surprising sense of peace. The lesson was simple, yet unforgettable. From that day forward, Sam faced life with the same spirit he had when carrying that ridiculous watermelon. Focused, determined, but always ready to laugh. Whenever he felt overwhelmed, he remembered the villagers' smiles and Master Sattu's joyful wisdom. And you? In your own life, when the journey feels tough, remember this. Carry your challenges with a sense of humor, and the road ahead becomes a lot more enjoyable. Life isn't just about reaching the end, it's about smiling through the bumps. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay inspired, stay light, and stay blessed. Once upon a time, a curious professor embarked on a journey to seek wisdom. His quest led him to the humble home of a Zen master, nestled deep within the tranquility of the mountains. Driven by his thirst for knowledge, the professor asked the master to explain the meaning of Zen. Without uttering a word, the master picked up a teapot and began pouring tea into a small, fragile cup. The professor watched as the tea rose to the brim, but the master continued to pour, allowing the tea to overflow and spill onto the table. Unable to contain his frustration, the professor blurted out, "Why do you keep pouring when the cup is already full?" His impatience was clear, his curiosity turning into irritation. The master calmly replied, "I wanted to show you something important. You are trying to understand Zen while your mind is already full, just like this cup. Before you can truly learn, you must first empty your mind of preconceptions." He continued, "If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It becomes open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." The professor sat there, letting the master's words sink in. He realized how often his mind was cluttered with judgments, assumptions, and expectations. To truly understand, he needed to empty his mind and approach life with fresh eyes. From that day on, the professor embraced the power of an empty mind. He learned to welcome each experience for what it truly was, without the weight of his own prejudices. And as his mind emptied, his heart grew full. Once upon a time, in a land filled with beauty and tradition, there lived a wise and aging king. Though his reign had brought peace and prosperity, he had one great concern. He had no son or heir to inherit the throne. As the years passed, the king knew he needed to choose a worthy successor, someone who could lead with wisdom, heart, and strength. But he wasn't looking for just any man. He sent out a royal decree across the kingdom, inviting all young men to come to the palace for a special interview. There was only one requirement. The candidate must possess a deep, genuine love for their fellow human beings. The entire country buzzed with excitement. Every village, every town, young men everywhere dreamed of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become the future ruler. Far away, in a quiet, humble village, lived a poor young man who also heard the king's invitation. Though he had no wealth or status, he had something more valuable, a kind heart and an honest soul. He worked day and night, saving every coin he could, just to afford clean clothes and food for the long journey to the palace. Finally, with a hopeful heart and simple belongings, he set off to meet the king. After many long days of walking, his journey neared its end. But just as the palace walls came into view, he noticed a frail beggar by the side of the road. The man was shivering from the cold, wrapped in nothing but rags, and clearly starving. With trembling hands, the beggar looked up and whispered, "Please, kind sir, I'm cold and hungry." The young man paused. He looked down at his only warm clothes, the same ones he had worked so hard to buy for his royal meeting. Without hesitation, he took them off and gave them to the beggar. Then, he handed over the food he had been saving for himself. Though the beggar thanked him profusely, the young man now faced a dilemma. He had no presentable clothes and little to eat. For a moment, doubt crept in. Should he still go to the palace, looking poor and worn? But he took a deep breath, reminded himself why he came, and walked through the palace gates with courage. The attendants noticed his appearance but still showed him respect and kindness, leading him to the grand hall. After a moment to clean up, he was called into the throne room. As he bowed before the king, he slowly looked up and froze in shock. The king looked exactly like the beggar he had helped. Seeing the confusion on his face, the king smiled and said, "Yes, I was the beggar you met on the road." The young man stammered, "But why, your majesty?" The king replied, "Because I needed to see what was truly in your heart. If I had come to you as a king, you might have tried to impress me. But when I came as a beggar, you showed love and compassion with no expectation of reward. That is the mark of a true leader." The king stood up and proclaimed, "You have proven that you are the one worthy to lead this kingdom, not because of your wealth or your appearance, but because of your heart. A great ruler must care for all people, especially the ones with nothing to offer in return." And so, the humble young man from a distant village became the heir to the throne. This story reminds us all that kindness is greater than cleverness, and compassion is the beginning of true wisdom. A crown may shine with gold, but the richest heart is found in the one who gives without expecting anything back. Thanks for listening, and remember, the world needs more leaders like this. Stay kind and stay blessed.
Once upon a time, a young man worked in a factory. His mentor, an experienced technician, gave him simple yet powerful advice. Talk less, do more, and never stop improving your skills. The young man took these words to heart and dedicated himself to mastering every aspect of the factory's operations. After 10 years of hard work, his mentor retired, and the young man stepped into his role as a technician. He continued to work with the same diligence, believing that his efforts would eventually be recognized. However, as time passed, he noticed something troubling. Many of his colleagues, even those with less experience, were being promoted, while he remained in the same position with the same pay. Frustrated and confused, he visited his old mentor and shared his concerns. "I've done everything you taught me," he said. "I've kept my head down, focused on my work, and mastered all the skills needed in the factory. But somehow, Others keep getting ahead while I stay in the same place. I don't understand why. His mentor listened patiently and then asked, "Are you certain that the factory cannot function without you?" The young man nodded confidently. "Yes, they rely on me for everything." The old man smiled knowingly. "Then, here's what you should do. Take a day off. Use any reason you like, but step away for a day." At first, the young man was puzzled by this advice, but as he thought about it, it made sense. He thanked his mentor and immediately put in a request for time off. When he returned the next day, he was called into the manager's office. During his absence, the factory had faced several issues that no one knew how to handle. The management quickly realized how essential he was, and as a result, he was promoted to senior technician as a token of appreciation for his hard work. Feeling triumphant, the young man believed he had discovered the secret to success. From then on, whenever he felt undervalued, he would take another day off. Each time, the factory struggled without him, and each time, his situation improved. However, after months of using the strategy, something unexpected happened. One day, he arrived at work and found himself locked out. To his shock, he had been fired. Unable to understand why, he once again turned to his mentor for guidance. "Why did this happen?" he asked, hurt and confused. "I followed your advice exactly." The old man shook his head. "No, you only followed half of the lesson." The young man frowned. "Half? What do you mean?" The mentor explained, "You understood that people don't appreciate a light bulb that is always on. It's only when it goes out that they notice how important it was. But you left before hearing the second part of the lesson." Leaning in, he continued, "The second part, more important than the first, is this. If a light bulb goes off too often, eventually people will replace it with one they can rely on. No one wants a light that flickers unpredictably." The young man finally understood his mistake. In life, the mentor went on, think about the people who are always there for you, friends, family, colleagues. Do you take them for granted? What if one day they are no longer there? Don't wait for that moment to appreciate them. Show gratitude now. And at the same time, don't let yourself be taken for granted. But also, don't stop everything just because things don't go your way. Find balance, and life will reward you with the same.
Once upon a time, there was a young boy who came from a very wealthy family. His life was filled with comfort, luxury, and everything money could buy. One day, his father had an idea. He wanted to teach his son an important lesson about life, one that couldn't be found in books or bought with riches. So, he took him on a trip to the countryside. The goal was simple, to show his son how people who have very little live. They arrived at a humble farm, home to a family that, by the father's standards, was considered extremely poor. The boy and his father stayed there for a few days, living alongside the family, sharing meals, and experiencing their way of life firsthand. Despite the modest setting, the family welcomed them with warmth, kindness, and open arms, something the boy wasn't used to seeing in his own world of guarded gates and polished floors. On their way back home, the father, curious about what his son had learned, asked, "So, how did you like the trip?" The boy smiled and said, "It was amazing, father." The father, pleased with what he assumed was a successful lesson, asked, "Did you see how poor people live?" "Yes, I did," the boy replied, but not in the way his father expected. The boy continued, "You know, we have only one dog, but they have 4. We have a swimming pool in our garden, but they have an endless river flowing nearby. Our backyard is lit with expensive lights, but they fall asleep under the stars. We have a balcony, they have the entire horizon. We own a small patch of land, and they live surrounded by vast open fields. We buy our food from stores. They grow theirs with love and care. And here's what really struck me," the boy said thoughtfully. "We build high fences around our house to protect what we own. But they don't need any fences. Their neighbors are their protectors, their friends are their family. We live surrounded by things, but they live surrounded by people. Thank you, Father, for this trip. Because now I understand how poor we really are." The father was speechless. And in that quiet moment, a powerful truth unfolded. Real wealth isn't measured by what we have, but by what we give, what we feel, and how we connect. Love, friendship, and freedom. These are the real treasures of life. If you have those, you're already rich. So don't shut yourself away, trying to protect what you own. Open your heart to the world. Embrace connection. That's how you become the richest person alive, because the entire world and everyone in it becomes a part of you.